of F1, and I made this video T-minus 60 minutes away from the first practice session of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But I'm not here to talk about that. Contrary to popular opinion, focus on the racing, Cameron. There are far more interesting plot lines going on there. Whatever happened to Senna and Prost in 1990 and Senna and Prost in 89? Talk about Schumacher and Hill in 94, why don't you? Or the days of Vettel, the heyday of Lewis Hamilton, and we can do that. That's all very well and easy, but these are old stories and plot lines, man. Why can't we talk about what's going on present day, surely? And sadly for F1, the dichotomy, what it posits to F1 fans around the world is stuff that's not, it's not giving, is it? It lacks friction, it lacks in stakes, hence why I've got to talk about all this other gossip stuff. F1, lest you forget, should be lucky that all these other things are going on in the background. These reasons why to watch what's going on visual. Stevie B in the chat, Geordie, very visual. Listen, you guys are legends, man. I appreciate you each and every single time, but there's some things that we need to talk about here because the community's doing one of these, right? It's diverging more than it is converging, and there are a couple of reasons why. Primarily, look, we were all starved of F1 action. We all thought that coming back after winter, after pre-season, after testing, that we were going to get some proper racing. We've been starved of it hitherto for long. It has been long, right? 3 years as near as makes no difference. And so how can we not expect the community to do one of these? Look, I took a screenshot. Go and follow my guy Bradley Philpotts on Twitter. I saw something that felt like a harbinger of the apocalypse as far as F1 is concerned. And again, me and my guy Stevie P were having a conversation this morning that spoke to similar sentiments. It's getting techie out here, peddlers. Here we go. Look, so Bradley Philpotts tweeted, and again, go and check that fella out on Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it these days. Tweet reads, will anyone be a little closer to Red Bull this weekend? Do we have any genuine, realistic hope? Hashtag F1. People are concerned, right? People want to know whether it's worth my while spending all this attention dollars, 4, 5, 6 hours worth watching a race weekend. WTF? If it's not good and juicy, if I know who's going to win at the outset, then why the hell am I watching? People are asking these questions. Diehards like Bradley Philpotts alike, who, by the way, is a real racer. He beat one Sebastian Vettel in the Race of Champions. He's a test driver for a living. And when dudes, guys and girls like that are asking those questions, there are questions that F1 needs to answer. Is it even worth my attention dollars tuning into free practice 1, 2 and 3 and quali and then the race, when all the while Max Verstappen is nailed on? Odds makers have him each and every single race weekend as a massive odds on favourite. Run a race simulation, and Max Verstappen under these circumstances wins the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix anywhere between 70 and 80% of the time. There is no such thing as certainty in betting terms, but that's as close as you're going to get. I digress. Marta responds to Bradley Philpotts' tweet saying, active race going follower of F1 for 60 years here. I don't care anymore. At least I can do other things on the ever-growing race weekends. That breaks my heart as an F1 fan who's been watching this thing as near as makes no difference 40 years. When you have guys and girls like that who have been in it for the long term, not these newcomer drive to survive types, of which 53% of the current watching populace is. That's different, right? That is a harbinger of the apocalypse, and F1 should be concerned. Bradley responds, genuine question, why don't you care anymore? And this is what we're going to talk to here because it's techie. Marta responds, I am being fleeced to pay lots more for an obviously rigged sport. The sport I love has disappeared, and what has replaced it has no integrity. From the teams and how they treat their drivers to team principals and the guy at the top of the FIA leaves a nasty taste in my mouth. I mean, how do we begin to parse that out? It's techie, very, very techie. Go on then. So let's dive deep into that, because I think, firstly, let me say, for the avoidance of doubt, that's not an isolated instance. The amount of guys that I've seen, and girls that I've seen in the chat, in the comments, saying, you know what, Cameron, I'm cancelling my subscription now that I know who's going to win like 99% of the 24 races this year. Well, I haven't got a why to watch, and that's concerning for F1. It's not lost on me that Liberty Media reported bumper results last week. 3.3 billion top line, I want to say, USD. That is chaos, driven in large part by more Grand Prix, more in real time attendances, live audiences, and take that. But these things are always lagging indicators, right? Liberty Media can't look at those results and think that everything is okay, especially not when first-hand experience shows that the people are talking about F1 in these terms, and not only people. By the way, before we do the deep dive, Lewis Hamilton too. Here's what Lewis is saying, and this is techie. As someone who loves the sport, it's definitely disappointing to see what's going on right now, said the Mercedes driver. It doesn't look good from the outside world, the outside looking in. Jeez. I think it's a really, really important time for the sport to really show and stick to its values, holding ourselves accountable for our actions. And it's a really, really pivotal moment, continues the 7-time champion. I think for the sport, in terms of what we project out to the world and how it's handled, and it's not been handled very well to this point. Transparency is really key, and I'm really, really hoping to see some progress moving forward. I hope, continues Lewis Hamilton, it's not a year that continues to go on with this, but it highlights some of the issues we also have within the sport. This is getting chaotic. From the 7-time champions talking in this tone, what else do we expect? We are in a bad circumstance, and you guys have been telling me, you know what, Cameron, can't you talk about something positive? Like, can't you be more upbeat? All this negativity and rumour mill and speculation and conjecture. Stick to racing, Cameron. Shut up and dribble. And that's all fine. But this, for me, is a symptom of the problem, right? This is the issue. The gatekeeping nature of F1 as a community, not welcoming in new eyes. And even then, with the new eyes, the 53% of the populace that have come into the sport via Drive to Survive, you need to watch the sport this way. Learn about it all you can. Understand the engineering principles and concepts. Know all the drivers inside out. Understand an up and under and a switchback and a slipstream and a dive bomb down the inside. And then we can have a conversation. And I just think it's massively gatekeeping. When Lewis Hamilton is talking in those terms, I think F1 has itself a problem. Look, we're 42 minutes away from the first session of free practice of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Did you guys even know that, really? Did you know that, really? Do you even care? Are you guys going to be watching this weekend? Or are you more concerned with what's going on in the background? Let me give you this analogy. Talking to a friend about sporting excellence earlier on in the week. And from my subjectivity, it's going on Polish. From my subjectivity, it's a really good sentence at Polish. Let me just read out Polish's things. You've distracted me from my train of thought. Polish says, guys, let's just appreciate the fact that we are alive at this time to witness the greatest driver ever in F1, breaking all records and dominating. See, Polish, I hear you, Polish, but you're speaking from your subjectivity as a Max Verstappen fan. And this is the problem, right? We can't assume that everybody watches all sports through the same lens of subjectivity. People are invested in the sport for different things, and to make that statement, Polish, is I feel like that's making an assumption. That's superimposing the way that you watch the sport and your partisanship, our partisanship, on everybody else, and things don't work like that, man. Everybody is a human, an individual, and everybody watches the sport for different reasons. I don't think it's fair to talk like, and that's not to say that I haven't spoken like that in the past. I've gatekeeped. I have gatekeeped, but for that I have repented. I'm a new man now in 2024, and I'm trying not to do it, lest the sport continue to contract as I think it's doing at the moment. Per Joe Pompliano, 10% in North American viewership last year. We need to grow this thing, right? I want other people to love it. But let me give you this analogy. I was talking about sporting brilliance and excellence. And I think we are all hypocrites in this, myself included, right? Let me tell you what I mean. So if I look at a Floyd Mayweather, and you guys will, some of you will have heard this analogy in the past. If I look at a Floyd or a Michael Schumacher, or I'm trying to think of another really good example. Basically, I say all that to say this. There are certain sports stars who reach this upper echelon of sporting excellence, who at their very pinnacle, when their flame is burning brightest, nobody can match them, right? Their excellence is unparalleled. Like, it takes my breath at John Bones Jones, if you guys watch UFC. The best, these guys in their given sports are the best that I've ever seen. On their way up, they're doing things that I've never seen anybody be able to do. Schumacher is a brilliant example. Senna too, brilliant example. You guys will remember the Monaco qualifying, of which there is no footage. I'm still seeing, like, hearing these things, hearing these stories and the peaks and the heights that these guys can reach. I think sometimes as sports fans, we put on blinkers, right? We're brilliant at separating the sports star from the personality outside the cockpit. Schumacher's another brilliant example. I didn't like Schumacher initially, yeah, but learning about his building blocks, his root and genesis story to reach the peaks that he did. 7-time champion, the only one at the time, record breaker still, right? But then seeing the way that he'd conduct himself sometimes in the cockpit, in and around the paddock, going to give one David Coulthard the greatest chin in the history of the world, going to have a word with him and trying to give him a cheeky punch to the side of his face. Perez, 97 as an example. 1994, lest we forget Adelaide, Damon Hill. Michael Schumacher is polemic in his very nature. He wasn't afraid to push the boundaries, right? But because he was so brilliant when he got inside the cockpit, fans around the world who were Michael Schumacher fans and fans of the sport did this convenient memory thing. Remember, like Men in Black? I forget all of the indiscretions and all of the badness and craziness that he did outside, all of the line stepping that he did outside of the cockpit. Floyd Mayweather is another brilliant example. As long as I've been watching boxing, guys, I've never seen a boxer technically better than Floyd Mayweather. The sport of boxing is about hitting and not being hit, right? And who better exemplified, personified that skill even than Floyd Mayweather? Unbelievable settings, but outside of the squared circle, he was an absolute douchebag. I would never hold up Floyd Mayweather to my son as the bastion of humanity. I don't want my son to become Floyd Mayweather. He's not a good person. He's not a good man. Not a good ever. There's no redeeming feature to that fella outside of the sport of boxing, outside of the squared circle. But what did I do? You guys ask. Conveniently, once that dude would get inside the ring, I didn't care. It all went to fairy dust. I was like, well, Floyd's my guy. All of the indiscretions, of which there were many, loads. I just was like, I can't remember that. And I think there are millions of sports fans around the world who are similar. John Bones Jones too, as an Exhibit C. I mean, what a scumbag outside the cage, but inside the cage he's the best fighter that I've ever seen in my life. Does these things in his sporting arena that no one can even conceive of, let alone go in there and execute. I say all that to say this. Excellence makes people's memories convenient, right? Yeah, selective memory settings a la Will Smith's Men in Black. I can't. What did he do? Michael Jordan similarly, right? The betting scandal. What did Michael Jordan do when he's doing all these brilliant things and he's crossing up Larry Bird and Patrick? You just forget, right? So again, say all that to say this: sporting excellence at its best makes people forget. Parlay that back into F1 now. Let's talk about 2021. 2021 wasn't the perfect season by any extent, by any sense of the imagination. It wasn't. Listen, you can pick holes in that, right? It was toxicity to the nth degree. You guys remember Silverstone. You guys remember the crap. Like, that's not, you don't want that for F1. But millions and millions, in the words of The Rock, were watching. You couldn't turn off, because each and every single weekend it was going to be friction, confrontation, jeopardy, uncertainty. Was it Lewis? Was it Max? What were Mercedes doing? What's Horner saying about Toto? There were a gazette, pick and choose your reason to watch, right? There was something in there for everyone. That's not to say it was perfect, but it was brilliant. It was brilliant in terms of the levels of competition that we saw. And then not to mention two god tier generational talents going at it for the first time in bloody years. The ascendancy of Max Verstappen to take his rightful place on the Mount Rushmore of F1. Could he defeat the existing record-breaking GOAT that is the 7-time champion Sir Lewis Carl David son Hamilton? Could he? Nobody knew the answers, hence why everybody was tuning in, and everybody simultaneously, concurrently, had this selective memory, forgetful memory thing. Oh, I don't really mind about the toxicity for now. I'm just going to tune in each and every single time. And I say all that to say this, whilst that's happening in real time, F1 was all good, right? When it was 2021, perfect, nothing to worry about. Don't need to address all of these other things beneath the surface. Toxicity, misogynism, prices both to attend the races and prices of subscription, hyperinflation, cost of living, sustainability, all this stuff. Kind of, who cares? Because I'm just going to watch Lewis and Max go at it for 22 races or whatever it was in 2021. Who cares? It was too blockbuster. But now the paradigm has shifted, right? Now that we don't have a Lewis and a Max in equal machinery, people are starting to think about their priorities. Do I really need to watch this? Now that we've got a monotonous season, a dominant champion who's been dominant for the past 3 years back to back, as near as makes no difference. Let's call it 2 and change. And probably another one on the way. 4-time champion, back to back consecutive settings. Now that we're flatlining as far as the plots, people are starting to take a step back and question these things about F1. Hence why the title of this video is F1 at a pivotal moment in its history. People didn't care about that in 2021 because there were too many distractions, too many other things for us to talk about. But now in 2024, now that there isn't racing on track friction, now people are taking a step back and are looking at these things. As your exhibit A, let's talk about Mohammed Ben Sulayem and his propensity to just drop the ball each and every single time. What is this dude doing? I mean, have we not got a regulatory body that's capable of some independent, consistent adjudicating? Oilfield, thank you so much, mate. You're a legend for becoming a member, by the way. Have we not got a regulatory body that's capable of leveling the playing field? Because let's remember, that's what they're supposed to be doing, right? Safety and making sure that the competitive landscape is even and fair, not skeweth in anyone's direction, including Red Bull. What's happened to that? Now, I know they were implementing this new rule and reg set because what they wanted was better racing, cars that could follow. Where is that, by the way? What's happened? Because Bahrain, again, a little bit of an anomaly as far as circuits go, but Bahrain last weekend was like, there was no overtaking, right? As near as makes no difference. You guys have seen me pull up the chart. Over the last few races, 6 or 7 Bahrain Grand Prix, we saw the most infrequent overtaking of any. And the only other one that came close was last year. So what are we doing? FIA. And this dude continues to overstep and he's getting himself involved where he doesn't belong, right, as far as the commercial rights holder. Why are you talking all this stuff about the valuation of F1? Indeed, trying to lowball for it. What sort of self-sabotage is this, Mohammed Ben Sulayem? It makes no sense in the grand scheme of it. I just don't get this, dude. And people are paying attention to it, right, because they've got attention dollars to reallocate. Not going to be watching free practice anymore to find out what's going on because people have stopped caring. How do we make people care? You got MBS with all his shenanigans, and listen, he has a history of shenanigans. You would have seen me eulogizing about this yesterday in the video that I put out. This isn't the first time. The Alonso reinstatement isn't the first time. The overstepping on the Las Vegas track race inspection, that wasn't the first time. The asset value comment wasn't the first time. The commenting and investigating Susie Wolff for alleged conflicting demands, that wasn't the first time. He is a serial killer, and there is politics and friction between the FI and F1 that kind of it gives context. You got a table set when you're talking about this. It's not isolated, because MBS really wants for F1 to understand that it's not just F1, and it isn't F1. They regulate over formula, but for us, for the likes of me who only watch F1, the only interaction that I see, the only time that I hear from MBS was when he's talking about F1. The rest of the stuff I don't really care about. You just got to understand his communication in that light, right? And I think it's techie. I think his tenure, his leadership is untenable at this point. Oh, and I forgot. How about that picture that he very quickly posted and deleted, commemorating 20 years of the Bahrain Grand Prix with himself, Prince Andrew, and Max Mosley? I mean, as if we didn't think you were a misogynist already, mate. How about you take a picture and post it on your Instagram with two of the most documented exponents of the trade that is misogynism? No, what are we doing here? This is ridiculous. Honestly, insensitivity doesn't even cut it as a word. I will be honest. Foster MBS is so cringe. Dude is out of his depth. Let him go and manage a local go-kart track. Also, Foster, you say that disparagingly, but I don't think you're a gazillion miles off the mark. And that's not to say that he doesn't have redeeming feature, right? Because he's a racer and he's won rallies and all this stuff, and he knows the sport in a way that's different to Jean Todt. Jean Todt was indeed an F1 guy. An FIA need an FIA guy. They thought that Mohammed Ben Sulayem was that, but listen, if you can't nail it, then you can't nail it, and he's not fit for purpose. Selvin says more people follow Lewis than all of F1 combined. Laughing out loud. Selvin, do we talk about that? Do we talk about that, Selvin? Because it's techie. I will get to it, Selvin. I will get to it, I promise. I want to talk about the misogynism since that's the word that I just threw out. So look, there was a tweet, for the longest time, and again, if we're talking about Hippocrates was once a person, for the longest time I've watched F1 and I thought, I don't know if you guys have had the similar sentiment, right? But I thought, should I really be watching this? You remember a couple of years ago when in qualifying, there was like explosions going off in the background on the televised broadcast, and they just carried on, didn't they? What? They just carried on as if nothing was ever happened. And then we come to learn that in effect, the drivers were taken hostage. Listen, you don't need to race, but good luck getting out of this country. And I mean, that's not an isolated incident again, especially if we're talking about this region of the world. If you guys are wrestling fans, you will know that the similar thing happened with WWE. There was a dispute over pay-per-view performance over the broadcast. And the territory being Saudi Arabia said, you know what, chaps, if you don't want to wrestle, how about you just sack it off? But good luck getting out of the country. It's that type of conversation that we're having. And that can't sit right. I mean, how much are we willing to sacrifice as F1 fans and participants, related parties, for the bottom line? How much exactly? What are we prepared to jeopardise the safety of the drivers? Because that's what we're talking about here in this circumstance. How is there a bomb and conflict going on whilst a session is in progress? Like beggars belief, right? Beggars belief. Safety, they don't give a monkeys about these drivers. Are we not getting the Rock impression? Let's go, Stevie. I'd love to do it, man, but I'm getting in my serious bag now, so I couldn't do if you swear. Stevie P, you're killing me. How much are we prepared to sacrifice? Look, the world is a very different place in 2024, and the money evidently is in the Middle East. They're expanding and petrostates and all that good stuff. But that comes with a downside, right? We know for a fact that the humanitarian record in this part of the world historically hasn't been fantastic. So what message is F1 sending as a billion-dollar sport that guys and girls, by the way, are watching around the world, that we're prepared to go to these countries and participate in their sports washing? What message does that send? For me, it's not a good one, you know, like, I'll be honest. And again, this is why I say at the outset, sometimes I watch this sport and I question, am I not the hypocrite? What am I doing? Paying £60 every single month to Sky Sports, the internationally syndicated broadcaster of Formula One. Surely there are bigger issues in this. Where's your protest, Cameron, is the question that I ask myself when I look in the mirror. What am I doing? Because again, we're all sons. We've all got mums and wives and daughters and all this stuff. Like, do you know what I mean? To say that I'm not a related party because I'm a man, I'm not affected, I think is like, that's not good enough, is it? Of us with discerning eyes and of rational mind. We can't be thinking like that. I don't think it's acceptable, I will be honest. And so I will watch the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We will stream it. But again, it's not lost on me that I am a willing participant in this. I've prioritised my own selfish need to watch the sport that I love over the broader socio-economic, the moral dilemma that F1 puts us into every time it goes to a Bahrain or a Qatar or a Saudi Arabia. These are questions that we need to be asking. And I think once again, drawing it back to the initial thesis, whilst there is no friction and uncertainty on track, I think we're going to keep asking ourselves these questions about Mohammed bin Salman, especially when he's talking about, I don't like women that think they're cleverer than men. What are you doing? Who is this chap? Each and every single time, he never fails to seize PR defeat from the jaws of, just shut up, bro. What is your problem? And so we're going to have to keep asking ourselves these questions, right? And hence why Lewis is talking in these terms about pivotal moments. And again, if we're going to talk about Lewis, I want to mention Lewis very quickly. Cash will always be king, says Dominic. Oh, mate, that sadly is and that's the bottom line, in the words of the Rock Stevie P. Oilfield says, just amazes me how people swear their favourite driver is the best of all time. Unless we have two best drivers in the best cars, how will we ever know who the best is? Without that, it's just subjective. Absolutely, Oilfield. It's all, ultimately, it's barbershop chat, isn't it? And you can't know unless you normalise for all the variables underlying, right? If I put my accounting cap on, same cars, same team, same pit crew, same state of mind, same CPU disposable or available even for the drivers. Now you got to normalise for all this. And I think in 2021, if we reminisce for a second, I think in 2021, that's the closest that we've been to it for the longest time. These guys had similar machines, similar cars. Like, they were similarly quick. I mean, razor thin were the margins between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton in 2021. But it's not, it's a different time now, Stevie P says. About time the FIA had a female president, Deborah Meyer, Iron Dames owner. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't be bad, Stevie P. I did watch a cheeky documentary on the Iron Dames, but they don't get enough credit. All right, let's take that, Stevie P. Let's talk to that. Or someone like Susie Wolf would be perfect, mate. Let's talk to that then. So, why don't these... There are very many female drivers out there that are already and capable, right? God tier level drivers, but they don't even get any... We don't talk about them ever. Stevie P, look at me. All right, let's bring myself to the red table. I only found out about the Iron Dames a couple of months back. Like, and I'm an F1 content creator, for Pete's sake. Of rational mind, wary of moral hazard and dilemma. I didn't know. So how bad is it? How endemic is the misogyny in motorsports and F1, to be precise? I think more than I ever contemplated. Sadly, as sad as that is, but what are we going to do about it? Because ultimately, each and every single one of you in the chat, myself included, we're just going to, when it's quali, we'll be watching. And when it's the race, we'll be watching in kind. What's the action out of this? And I don't know. So it's a rhetorical question. I don't have the answers. Oilfield, I completely agree. Obviously, two of the best to do it. Hopefully we get it again, says Oilfield, while they're both still racing. And you know what, Oilfield, are we gonna get me my what if bag, my hypothesis? This is why I've been killing Mercedes. You guys will have heard me go ham, no pun intended, on Mercedes for the past couple of years. Not for the initial mistake on the design philosophy, yeah, because everybody makes a mistake, Adrian Newey included in that, but for rolling forward that their design philosophy from 2022 in 2023. Lest we forget that they reprioritized their resources in 2021 to focus on that 2022 car, so that they messed it up in the first place is absolutely an abomination, and they are worthy of a lot of criticism for that. But I digress. Forgive and forget, Cameron. But the fact that they rolled it, they didn't do what they should have done, which was to fail fast and concentrate on what they've brought forth to the F1 party in 2024 is absolutely worthy of a lot of material criticism. This car in 2024 should have been what they had this time last year, right? They're like 24 months behind where they should be, and I think that's a crying shame, because Lewis Hamilton's careers are wasting. 2 years deep now and counting. This will be 3 and 4 next year if Ferrari don't bring him a car. I don't know. I just think I want to see the best drivers in the best cars do battle against the best, and we don't have time to wait. Life is a finite resource, right? And Lewis's peak is a wasting. As Lewis next year will be 40 years old. Is he at his peak still? I mean, I've heard Lewis Hamilton evangelists start to question his qualifying pace as an example. Lewis's mixed messages from Lewis as far as what's going on with the focus on a car setup for the race. Where was that? Sounds like excuses now when the race pace was lacking in addition to the quali pace. Oilfield says like Jordan, LeBron, unless they can 1v1 in their pride. Yeah, it's barbershop talk, Oilfield, this. It is barbershop talk. But we like to do it right. Who was the greatest of all time? The fact that we will never know and be able to say with any sort of definitive that's half the fun. Who was the greatest of all time? Vinny says, so what are you saying? Go on then, Vinny. I'm going to engage you on this. Let's back and forth and discourse for this. Vinny says, so what you are saying is that Lewis should win every year. Vinny, that is absolutely not what I'm saying. Vinny, don't do the availability heuristic and only hear what you wanted to hear. Vinny, that's not what I said, is it? Vinny, look, Lewis shouldn't win every year. Like, I'd love 2021, irrespective of how it ended. I thought it was one of the best seasons that I've ever watched in my life. But what I don't want for Lewis, I don't want to see him in a car that doesn't have the minerals that he can't win in, because that's a waste. Just like Alonso, similarly, or if Max didn't have a car that was capable, I want to see the best drivers in the best cars fight each other. So that's not what I'm saying, Vinny. Behave yourself. Behave yourself, Vinny. When Lewis isn't winning his career, his race. No, Vinny, that's not what I'm saying. You heard me, Vinny. So we're in an interesting place, aren't we? I think Liberty Media over the next few races will see their viewing figures drop off massively, especially if it continues to be as dominant for Max Verstappen as it is. 22 seconds. And it could have been more, remember, because Checo Perez pulled the undercut on his teammate. Max Verstappen has gone clear on the... I want to say he's probably got 60 seconds in hand on the rest, around the 90-second track like Sakhir, the Bahrain International, and that's bonkers. 60 seconds in hand around it's 57 laps. That's a second a lap? Listen, I don't know. But I digress. I just feel like we're in a really interesting pace. 25 minutes away from free practice. By the way, wait until Liberty sell F1. See, the joke is, if you're talking to Windsor, Steve, he makes a good point that Liberty have done lots of good things for F1, right? The digitization of it, the fact that we can get multi-viewer and look at stats and all that good stuff. The fact that they've embraced social media in a way that Bernie and Max before him were never even interested in doing. I think Liberty have done some really, really good things, but now is a very different, F1 is in a very different circumstance, right? To take F1 to the next level from here on in is a very different proposition than it was to take it to the level that it's at. These are very different. Netflix Drive to Survive, as an example, did a fantastic job. 53%. We know the numbers already. However, what's next? The article in The Guardian, Marina Hydes, writes it brilliantly. She breathes life to it perfectly. I mean, what, we're going to get one Drive to Survive season a year? Well, that's the best that we can do. Meanwhile, all these topics and plot lines are ongoing in the background. They could surely feed something to us each and every single week, a la like a HBO 24/7 or NFL's All or Nothing. We should be able to get these every week, right? But F1 is so buttoned up and so gatekeepy in its fundamental constitution. We don't see this stuff. It's almost like they hide it. I'll give you a good example. Lewis did a press conference yesterday. I've seen pictures. You guys have heard the quotes. I've read some of them out just now. Where's the footage? Why am I having to scour the internet for I want to see the press conference and see Lewis Hamilton say these words. Where's the footage? I can't find it anywhere. Why so bloody secretive all the bloody time? It's yeah, I don't know. Oilfield says, I like your Polish is a different gravy, Oilfield, as you will come to realise. A completely different gravy is Polish. Yeah, so I don't know. We are indeed at a pivotal time in F1's trajectory. And I'm keen. I say all this and you guys will kill me for being super negative and why are you talking in these terms all the time? I'm a pathetic fallacy of a content creator. What I mean by that is that I can only mirror what F1 is giving to me, right? Because it's Christian Horner debacle and allegations, and it's power struggle and vacuum at Red Bull, and Lewis Hamilton is despondent with the lack of diversity and equality. That's all that these guys, that's what they're giving to us as a content creator. I would love to talk about 2021 and Silverstone and Monza and who done it and Qatar. Was it a breakthrough? I would love to talk about that each and every single day. But those plot lines are played out, man. They're old. What's the new stuff? And the new stuff that F1 is giving to us at this present time is just that. It is Christian Horner. So what else? Don't shoot the messenger. You know what I mean? Don't shoot the messenger. Siegfried says, shame they don't upload it on official chat. I don't know why they don't do it. And Windsor's been talking about this for the longest time, right? Peter Windsor, first of his name, legend in the game. Why doesn't Lewis have a camera for? Okay, so let me point the lens at Lewis, and I'll talk about Lewis very quickly, and I'm gonna run away. Why does Lewis only have a camera on him when he's got his like beautiful garments on when he's arriving at a Grand Prix? I don't want to say that smacks of Stalin's Russia, but we're seeing, because he's interested in fashion, we're seeing what he wants us to see. And now we're seeing that the other drivers are catching on because they understand the social media upside from having a photographer and seeing them arrive at the Grand Prix. They're taken from boxing. When boxers arrive to the ring, there's always like a camera on them. And when they arrive in Vegas for the fight weekend, they're always getting photographed. But where's the rest of the content? Per this article in The Guardian, there's all this stuff going on, all these interactions with engineers talking about the car, the setup for the week. Like, there's all this stuff going on. It can't just start and end in the press pen, right? So these guys could do more. All of them, I'm not just pointing the lens at Lewis Hamilton. I'm not. I know it sounds like I am, but all of them could do more. Probably the younger ones should be more but they're getting paid big bucks, aren't they? Millions. So why would they then be invested in growing the sport necessarily? I don't know. But I think that's a shame, I will be honest. And then Lewis Hamilton, finally, I want to talk. Lewis is controlled by gatekeepers, says Speed. So Lewis is Lewis controlled by gatekeepers? Oh, we've just got techie, haven't we? All of a sudden. Chris says Lewis is a smart businessman. Oilfield, exactly. Oilfield says, so who we have coming first this weekend after Max? Oilfield, I'll go to predictions shortly, but we've gone into Lewis and it's got techie now. Lewis is a businessman not a businessman. In the words of Jay-Z. All right, look. So I think Lewis. I've said what I've said, and then I'm gonna devil's advocate it now. I think Lewis is in a unique position in that he can't come out. He's acutely aware of the potential downsides of speaking his mind before the world's press and media, because they'll come for him, being who he is on the pedestal that he sits on. Like he can't speak his mind. Watch it, yeah, candidate, you're a legend. Hit the like, please. And subscribe if you're not already. Lewis's position is different. He has to circle the wagons more than most because he can't be as bullish as a Max Verstappen for a multitude of different reasons, which you can go into on another day. So in that sense, I feel like I've just done Lewis a massive disservice by talking about him. But in terms of his original statement, the quote that I've just mentioned, aforementioned, about pivot points. Again, look, I'm going to talk to age. These guys are going longer and harder. Alonso is testament to that. How old is he now? 42. Still going hard. We saw his Brazilian performance that he put in against Checo Perez. But I'd like to see Fernando Alonso do that to Max Verstappen. I don't think Checo Perez is the test. That's not the benchmark by which you can measure whether Fernando Alonso has fallen off. Put him against the best, right? A Max Verstappen or a Charles Leclerc, the most hungriest and strongest of the young F1 driver lions. That will be the test, the litmus test even. Lewis is going to undergo that properly, full force settings next year. Listen, if Lewis can't out-qualify George Russell, isolated incidents last weekend and issues and seats and car setups and whatever, but look, if at 40 years old, Lewis can't, 39 even, Lewis can't out-qualify George Russell, what chance has he got against Charles Leclerc? He's faster. He's a stronger, hungrier line, particularly in qualifying trim, right? Listen, time is a finite resource, and these sports stars peak for a very short period of time. People will argue each and every well, look at Tom Brady and LeBron's going longer, and F1's not weightlifting where it's overly physical necessarily. But listen, it takes a toll, right? 24 races a year all around the bloody world. Like at the age of 40, like I travel to Spain and I feel it. That flight's 1.5 hours. Lewis has got a private jet, but Lewis is traveling all around the world. Alonso too at 42 years old. He's got to take a toll. You can hear, look, case in point again. You guys have heard Fernando talking recently. You can hear him. He's contemplating in real time whether he wants to continue as an F1 driver, talking about the R word being retirement in real time. And you know what Dana White always says, the second that retirement comes into your head, you're already retired. If you're thinking about retiring, then just retire. Because mentally you're already retired. Alonso's talking about whether he wants to continue to make the sacrifice requisite to being an F1 driver and making that a success. 42 years old. People say that, oh, Lewis is still at his prime, he's got another 100 years left and all this. Not quite, man. Not quite. And if he thinks he's had a hard time with George Russell, Charles Leclerc has pace to give a 40-year-old F1 driver fits each and every single time. But I digress. It's interesting. Let me read some of your comments very quickly before I run away. Dominic, do you think Lewis... I bloody predictions as well, didn't I? I've forgotten. Poor chairmanship, Cameron. Let me read this and we'll do predictions. Dominic, do you feel Lewis and Charles will clash much? So Charles isn't... I don't think he's that type of personality to... Do you know what I mean? He's not like a... He's not that type of F1 driver, at least not ostensibly, not from the outside. But I don't think Lewis will relish Charles' speed. Nobody would. There's no driver in the world that would relish having to deal with a bullish, young, hungry 26, 27-year-old Charles Leclerc, one of the fastest drivers that we've ever seen over one lap. Do you know what I mean? That's not easy. And quali still matters in 2024. Yeah, race pace and whatever. And make sure your car in race trim can get it done. But don't sacrifice quali completely. It doesn't make sense. Big up Cameron F1. Enough respect, CBD. I hope you're good, mate. Lewis is a brand and represents a demographic underrepresented in motorsport. He can't enjoy the same privilege as Matt. Very well put, CBD. And he's acutely aware of that, right? He's had to contend with that all his life without getting far to take it. Right, predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Max is an odds-on favourite, and I don't like lane chalk. It's just it's a mugs game to just predict Max. But I think it would be... I can't not predict Max. That RB20, have you seen it? It's far too quick. Who could beat... Okay, all right. So Ferrari would be... Amongst the contenders, Ferrari are a candidate most likely, right? I just don't rate Charles enough to think that he can beat Matt. Not with any sort of regularity. Maybe over one race, but he just makes too many bloody mistakes. And this is why some people are moving across the camp Carlos Sainz Jr., right? That they can't be bothered anymore to invest in the overly volatile stock that is Charles Leclerc PLC. Like, he'll get it done. He might take 1 or 2 races off of Max, but if we're playing probabilities, then I'm never going to pick Charles to... I don't know, I just can't do it. Charles probably will be best at Charles or Carlos. I'm keen to see how that plot line between those Ferrari drivers plays out. Super key. Half rooting on Carlos Sainz Jr., I will tell you, for the avoidance of doubt. Really am. I feel like he's been hard done by Ferrari and the F1 populace on a whole. Like, people disrespecting, myself included, just because he hasn't got that sexy one-lap pace of a Charles Leclerc. And he doesn't look like a champion like a Charles Leclerc, right? And again, I think like that plays a part, as much as it shouldn't do. We're all human, and that plays a part, right? Charles looks like he's about to jump in the telephone box and put on his or take off his glasses like a Clark Kent even. Oilfield says, I think we should set up a viewer boxing match for you all to sort this out. Vinny answered, listen, I love the debate, guys. Listen, what else are we here for? Leash says, Oilfield, those two are meant for each other, attention seeking. Listen, we're going to have debates here. So long as you guys keep it copacetic, I'm here for it each and every single time. Right, guys. We are T-minus 13 minutes away from a first practice session. And I've talked for far too long about all things F1 and pivotal moments and where F1's headed, its trajectory, what it needs to do expeditiously if it's to solve for a fan base that's dwindling. Not all of whom are brand new fans, by the way, and that makes me feel concerned. But you know what? It's not my place. Is it far above my pay grade to solve for the current day ills of Formula One as a sport? Candidate says bar unforeseen circumstances such as flat tyres, engine failure, Max will win every race. Oh my God, candidate. I tell you what concerns me as well, as far as the monotony of the 2024 season. Normally you've got jeopardy as far as reliability, right, candidate? Where is that? First races back to back, this and the last one of last season, where there have been no retirements. I think definitely last race, and I think the last race of last season, no retirement. So what? I thought Ross Brawn had his finger on this pulse. You know what? Whatever. Happy free practice day, says Oilfield. You guys have been legends. Thank you so much for joining. Video out later on talking about all the news as per usual. Leash, hope you're welcome. I'm not as excited as I was last weekend, but looking forward to it. See, Leash, I love the positivity. That's the positivity that I think we need to end the stream on. It's important, right? But again, it's hard out here for a pimp. I'm an idiot. You guys are legends. Chris says, if Max wins every race this season, keep an eye on the ratings. Chris, it's happening already. Follow a chap called Joe Pompiliano on Twitter. 10% down at the North American ratings last year. It's happening already. It's only going to get worse. The longer that this monotony continues, the greater the extent of the downside as far as viewer ratings go. But nobody's not going to watch this. Only like the real diehards. Real diehards will be watching. You and me and Windsor. Everybody else will be tuned out, eh? I digress. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have been legends. We'll be back later on with a cheeky news video, of course. and streaming quali and the race as always this weekend. Between now and then, as always, remember to look but never stir.